Hi guys. You asked for it, so here it is, my thoughts on episode 9. Normally, I don't react to or dive into some of the things I'll be discussing in this video, but since so many of you requested it, I figured, why not? Before we dive in, I just want to say, if you're here for honest opinions and thoughtful takes, you're in the right place. I know not everyone will agree with me, and that's totally okay. My goal isn't to convince anyone to think like me, just to share my perspective with those who are open to hearing it or having a respectful discussion. Quick disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with Heart Pairing in any way, I'm simply a viewer who enjoys talking about it and connecting with others who do too. So with that said, let's dive in. In my last video, I noticed a wave of Woojae fans in the comments, and honestly, where have you all been? It was great to see the conversation blow up like that. I really appreciated the energy, and I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts on this video as well. One of the main topics people brought up was the Screentime situation, particularly frustrations that Jaeyeon got too much focus, that Jimin is becoming grating, and that Woojae is being unfairly portrayed by the producers. I even saw some people saying Jaeyeon's scenes were dry, and that they just wanted to fast forward to Jaeyeon and Woojae's date. First, let's talk about if the pacing and editing makes sense. I came across another recent interview with P.D. Park, the director behind H.Signal, and he had some great points. He talked about the challenges of making dating shows feel authentic, especially now that so many exist, and we've seen how often the final couples don't last after the cameras stop rolling. That's made people question how real these connections actually are. P.D. Park explained that part of the problem is repetition, storylines start to feel recycled, so newer shows try to grab attention with more extreme or dramatic moments. He said what made H.Signal special back then was the rush it gave viewers, something fresh and emotionally charged. But it's been a long time since a show gave people that same kind of feeling. That's why he created Heart Pairing, with the intention of making something more meaningful. He wanted participants to form sincere connections and date with real purpose. When asked why he didn't just continue H.Signal, he explained that the format had limits. H.Signal was great for showing the early stages, from flirting to dating, but once people reach their late 20s or early 30s, many are thinking more seriously about marriage. In casting interviews, a lot of them said they didn't see casual dating shows as the right fit for where they were in life. He added something I found really interesting. In H.Signal, it made sense for participants to explore multiple connections at once. But Heart Pairing is different. It's about finding a life partner, so the cast members naturally focus more deeply on just one person. There's a seriousness and urgency that comes with that shift. This means that in H.Signal, participants could test the waters with multiple people. But here, everyone's looking for something more permanent, so every moment is handled with extra care. And I think you can really feel it in how the show is paced and edited. In regards to trusting the edit, rather than getting hung up on too much or too little screen time, I've learned to assume the editors have a reason for every cut, whether it's to avoid spoilers or to shield someone from unfair backlash. Example is during Woojae and Jaeyeon's lunch, just as Woojae began discussing her pace being the reason why their relationship wouldn't work, and that others too felt the same way about her, Jaeyeon looked kind of sad with her head bowed. But then, it immediately cut to them talking about Jimin. We never even got the chance to hear how they started talking about Jimin. But, we see that Jaeyeon is now smiling again. That felt like a deliberate choice to balance the tone. It actually reminded me of Singles Inferno 4, when we only saw a brief snippet of Jaeyeon and Kim Taewon's date in paradise. Many of us were wondering why they didn't show us more of their romantic date, especially after seeing them skating romantically holding hands and everything. But later, we found out that date was really terrible. Production removed it to reduce backlash on Taewon but had to show it later as a snippet because it was important for Jaeyeon's story when she complained about him. I just got the same feeling here too. There's a good reason why that scene was not featured as a scene by itself but only as a reference of memory to complete and conclude Jaeyeon and Woojae's chapter. They even showed a flashback of Woojae asking her about her pace during their date in Italy, just to make Woojae more relatable. As opposed to what many are thinking that production is making him look bad, I feel like production is trying very hard to save his image. It got even worse when Jaeyeon said to Jimin during their date that she didn't like who she was with Woojae. It makes you wonder what the full story might be. It would be nice for production to drop the full scene on their YouTube channel, but personally, I wouldn't want to see it though, if truly, Woojae's words got more condescending in that clip. I don't see why it should be cut off if it was really a nice conversation for both parties through and through. Anyways, I really didn't think much about that lunch scene until I saw those comments and I could see why it mattered to some viewers. We can at least all agree that we wouldn't be surprised if there's more to the Jaeyeon-Woojae clip that we haven't seen yet. Whether it's about suspense or protection, or avoiding dishing out spoilers. Those editorial decisions are part of the storytelling craft. Overall, I think the producers have done a solid job balancing each cast member's story. It seems like a fair portrayal for everyone. We've seen Jimin's missteps just as clearly as Woojae's moments of doubt, and everyone's human flaws are on display. That's part of what makes the show so real. Now, why is there a shift in episode 9 editing, since the producers have been doing a great job with showing everyone's story in some sort of balanced way up till now? But in episode 9, Jaeyeon seemed to be the queen of the show, occupying most of the scenes. Well, it wasn't a random edit. It was the arrival of a new contestant, Sang-yoon. His storyline too needs to be shown just as much as the others, and who was his storyline attached to? It was Jaeyeon. And I believe every communication that made it into edits during their date was very important. The interesting part is his scenes mirrored some of Woojae's earlier conversations with Jaeyeon, but his tone was more receptive. That contrast is crucial storytelling, especially if he ultimately becomes her match in the end. And on the flip side, if her final match is Jimin, wouldn't it be important to show how their relationship was shaken by a powerful game-changer? If they didn't show her date with Jimin, it seems the story will have too many loopholes if she finally texts him by the end of the day like she did in the episode, which also explains the reasons why Jimin keeps flipping their photos. So here's my question. If episode 9 had been more of a Woojae, Jaeyeon or Woojae, G1 date, would we still grip on pacing and screen time? I don't think so. If G1 had been the one chosen by Sang-yoon and she had to go on a date with two men, and they needed to show her relationship development with the men, would you still be complaining? I don't think so. But because Woojae and Jaeyeon won't work out, people are pissed and I get it. It's an understandable frustration. So, considering all that, I can honestly say episode 9 didn't frustrate me at all. I enjoyed every second of it. And I hope to see more of G1's relationship development in the coming episodes, which I will also watch with glee if she gets more screen time too, and I'll make sure to enjoy every second of it too, hahaha. The only issue I had with Woojae's attitude in episode 9 was when he went to the women's room and called out for G1 while Jaeyeon was right there with her. A lot of people in the comments have been saying, well, Jimin does the same thing, so why can't Woojae? But here's the difference. Jimin clearly drew boundaries with the women he wasn't interested in. And he sure can call on Jaeyeon whenever he wants to because he's never confessed his feelings to G1. Meanwhile, Woojae told Jaeyeon in Italy that he had liked her since he first saw her. He asked to take her to work when they returned to Seoul. They even went out to dinner, obviously trying to show her his feelings and interest in her. From Jaeyeon's perspective, something was clearly developing between them. So all Woojae needed to do was have a proper conversation with Jaeyeon, pull her aside, let her know that his feelings had changed, and give her the clarity she deserved. Instead, he walked into their shared room and called out for her roommate in front of her. To me, that felt like he was rubbing it in her face, as if her feelings didn't matter. He could have easily waited outside for G1, but he didn't. And to me, that choice wasn't respectful to either of the ladies. Now, I didn't have a problem with him doing something like that when the contract relationship was still in place. But once the contract ended, I expected more maturity from him. If his feelings for Jaeyeon had changed, he owed her a conversation. And if he was still confused, then he definitely shouldn't have walked into that room and acted like Jaeyeon wasn't even there. It just came off as unnecessarily messy. That said, I really admired Jaeyeon for being the bigger person and inviting him out to lunch. And it's interesting, because when Woojae cares about someone, he does know how to handle things properly. Right after Jaeyeon asked him to lunch, he immediately told Jaeyeon about it. That tells me he knows how to be considerate, at least when it comes to Jaeyeon. Unfortunately, he didn't offer Jaeyeon that same kind of respect, and that's what didn't sit right with me. Now, moving on to Hanul. I've seen some comments saying she was evil edited, but honestly, I'm not convinced. She's made some strategic moves so far, like keeping Jaeyeon as a backup while focusing mainly on Jimin. At this point in the game, romantically speaking, Hanul isn't really making any big moves because she did the right thing and cut things off with Jaeyeon. So there's not much to show. Maybe some people want the show to include more clips of her at work, but let's be real, that's not exactly entertaining. This is reality TV. We can't expect the editors to manufacture Hanul moments out of thin air, lol. And I say this as someone who really likes Hanul on the show. It also reminds me of when people comment asking me to share rumors about Hanul. But how can I bring you rumors when there aren't any? Am I supposed to just make stuff up for clicks? That's not how I do things. Instead, I might do a fun shipping video for Hanul, no rumors required, just for the vibes, lol. Another thing the producer mentioned during this second interview is how he worked to differentiate heart pairing. PD Park revealed that he implemented 3 key features, the pairing book, contract dating, and a third element that has yet to be revealed on air. He teased this final element by saying, it's a mechanism that helps resolve doubts like, can I really marry this person? He said the latter half of the show goes beyond feeling butterflies, it's about confirming whether this is someone you can truly go the distance with. He emphasized that in H.Signal, even if a couple formed at the end, many ended up breaking up once the show started airing. There were couples I felt bad for while watching, he said. But you can't produce a show in a way that prevents all conflict. He also shared that he spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of environment could help participants feel confident about marriage. When asked the final question, have you found someone you can truly go all the way with? He replied, I really hope someone ends up getting married through heart pairing. My goal is to produce after pairing, just like the H.Signal spin-off from H.Signal. So guys, you know what that means, right? The producers are taking this show seriously, and so are the contestants. That's why we shouldn't hate on the cast or judge who they choose, as long as they're not being deceptive. After looking at things from the PD's perspective, I honestly can't deny that the editors have done a great job this season. Their editing style has been so on point that it helped me pick up on things early, things some of you doubted, but later turned out to be true. So for now, I have no complaints about episode 9. But that might change once I see episode 10. If we don't get an update on Jaeyeon, Woojae, and Changhwan, or who knows, maybe Sang-yoon will shift to Jaeyeon, then I'll start complaining. What are your thoughts on this video? Do you agree with my views, or do you have a different take? Share them in the comments. Please be mindful with your words and avoid calling the cast members derogatory names. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and like the video.